Hujambo, and Aquaba. Welcome to the Espresso Talk Today podcast show. I'm Amma Robin, host of this great and groundbreaking Black empowerment and Black liberation show, and I am so glad that you are here with me today. Yes, I am here having my turmeric coffee. It's not espresso today, it's a turmeric coffee. I'm trying to go a little healthier. And I hope that you have found some way to be a little healthier as you're joining me here today. Well, we are going to approach a different subject, something that you might not consider for a Black empowerment or a Black liberation show. But first, I do want to say that I am so glad that you're here with me today and to bid welcome to all of the returning visitors and audience, to bid a welcome to new audience members, and to bid a very big welcome to my dear brothers and sisters and gender nonconforming and gender neutral folks. Everyone is welcome here at the Espresso Talk Today podcast show because we are about Black empowerment and Black liberation. Okay, I hope you're settled because I have a riddle for you. What is the difference between a pilgrimage and an ordinary trip? What is the difference between a pilgrimage and an ordinary trip? Give that some thought. We're going to do the introduction music, and I will see you in about 30 seconds. I'm back. I'm glad you're here. And I want to know, do you have the answer? Well, I do. It is one word, a single word: transformation. And yes, that is the difference. Well, let's back it up a little bit. And because I want to share with you some things, some reasons why I feel this and why I know this. Look, I have been on many trips in my life. I've gone to many different places. I spent a lot of time in Brussels, Belgium, and in Lisbon, and I traveled all around the United States and a lot in Africa too, and I've been on a lot of trips. But I can tell you, I've only been on one pilgrimage. That's right. And I'll tell you that the pilgrimage that I've been on, I think, started when I was 11 years old, when my mother took me for the first time to the Oakland Museum to see an exhibit of James Van Der Zee. He was an amazing photographer Black photographer, I'm going to add that in because that is important, who focused on showing life in Harlem, particularly during the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s and 1930s. I didn't know it then. I was 11 years old. I didn't know my pilgrimage was starting, but it was, and it's continued. Many of you are probably thinking, okay, what is a pilgrimage? I'll back up to that too. All right, I looked up on AI. I use a lot of AI. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that, and it gave me a good definition of pilgrimage. And when I looked at this, yeah, I can work with this, and I'm going to read it to you. A pilgrimage is traditionally defined as a journey, often to an unknown or foreign place where a person goes in search of new or expanded meaning about themselves, others, nature, or a higher good through the experience. It's a deeply meaningful journey to a sacred site for spiritual reasons, often associated with religious devotion, where pilgrims seek to deepen their faith or gain insights. The pilgrimages are not limited to religious contexts, though. They can be cultural or personal, involving travel to locations that are significant to a person's identity, history, and values. Okay, I think that's about enough, because I think you get the picture. Now, mine has not been a religious journey. There's been a certain level of spirituality to it, But that wasn't the point. What was my journey? Yes, I think I gave you the hint already. I visited a museum when I was 11, and then I visited a lot of museums, but I didn't know I was on a pilgrimage until last week when I went to several different museums in Washington, D.C. and in New York. And what I discovered, what I found out, was a lot about the Black community, about Black art, about spirituality, about Black resilience, and about me, about myself as a Black woman. And, I realized that a pilgrimage is not just a one event kind of thing. It's an ongoing. It could be a lifetime kind of experience. It's not just you go from here to let's say New York, and that's it. It's not just you climb that mountain. Yeah, that's it. It could be for some people. It has not been for me, but it can be something that lasts a lifetime, a multi-event experience, and it. At the end or during it or somehow at some point you realize you are not the same person now as you were when you began, when the pilgrimage began. I think that's pretty deep. And I think that's often overlooked. People think of a pilgrimage that, you have to go bare feet and walk through, some kind of a forest or go up a mountain and that kind of thing. Maybe for some people, not judging, but for me, it has been through, you're probably going to judge me on this, I don't care, museums. That's right. Now, yes, this is a Black empowerment and Black liberation show, and it's made a big difference to realize this, because I realize that I am feeling more empowered and I'm feeling more liberated than I ever have after visiting these museums. And I have to say, and I do know this too, and I know you know as well, that pilgrimages or journeys are a huge part of the African and African American experience. I think of Harriet Tubman. Now, she escaped to freedom, but she went back to bring others to freedom. I consider that to be a pilgrimage, because it wasn't just that she went from Maryland went from, where she was living down back into the deep South to come back up. For her, that was part of the pilgrimage, but that wasn't the pilgrimage. The point was to bring her people to freedom. That's why she was called Moses. Then we have Barbara Hillary. Do you know her? Wonderful, incredible woman. She's recently passed. She actually went to, and this was, in recent times, is the first Black woman to go to the North Pole and the South Pole. Those were places she went from here to there. I think she was from Chicago. And she went to those places, and that was a pilgrimage for her. Matthew Henson, first Black man to get to, in fact, I would say the first person to get to the North Pole. We're going to talk more about that later. And he said, I'm the first person to sit on top of the world. How's that for a pilgrimage? Bessie Coleman, an aviator, who wanted to be an amazing flyer, but she wouldn't be taught in the U.S., so she went to France. Part of the pilgrimage, but her developing and turning into a world-class, first-class aviator was her pilgrimage. So a pilgrimage can take many different forms. And for me, it's been going to different museums and discovering myself. And that's, I think, why a pilgrimage is different from a trip. Because after a pilgrimage, there is that T word, transformation. I do want to share with you that this isn't a show about about various different things at the museums, but I do want to mention a few that I went to because they're significant to the show and to the impact of the pilgrimage. So I went to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, in Washington, D.C. I've been there several times. And each time I find something new. Of course, a lot about slavery and about civil rights. But also, then I've been spending more time upstairs and seeing more of the contemporary information and art and experience and the Afrofuturism. Wow, the Afrofuturism exhibit. Now, that's taken us not it's taken some stuff from the past, some stuff from the present, but really creating the black future that we are going to be in the future. That we are a part of the future, and that it's gonna we can actually create our future. I mean, that is transformative right there. I went to the Smithsonian Museum of African Art where I learned about Adinkra symbols. And those, I don't know if you've seen them, but they're from West Africa, and they're these fantastic symbols that represent different things. And maybe you've heard of Sankofa. We're looking back in order to go forward, learning lessons from the past in order to go forward. Those are Adinkra symbols. I went to the National Portrait Gallery and to the another gallery too, where I saw, portraits of Frederick Douglass in various different stages of his life. I always see him, as this older man with this huge flock of white hair, very handsome, but older. But I went to see him as a younger man too, was really transformative as well. And then there's Octavia Butler, an Afrofuturist, a science fiction writer who took it to a different level. Benjamin Banneker, whom my father told me about when I was a lot younger, but I didn't realize all that he had done as an architect and an astrologer and a mathematician, and who was also challenging Thomas Jefferson, who designed Washington, D.C. and challenged Thomas Jefferson, who actually had a lot of respect for him, even though he was black. But he was just Benjamin Banneker was just an incredible man on his own, also an Afrofuturist too. And we have then Faith Ringgold and William H. Johnston, a person Johnston I had never heard of before, but he did into protest art. You can see in the vibrant colors, and he did not hold back as to what he was showing his pictures. So, and Faith Ringgold, I just can't go on without mentioning her a little bit more. She was did painting and sewing and tapestries, and an incredible woman who also showed the protest art movement and built communities, helped particularly for women of color. And unfortunately, she just passed in April of this year of 2024. But she left an incredible legacy who will never be forgotten. Now, these things all were just coming to me, and there's so many different senses and so many different ways that I just couldn't even stop. I couldn't stop. And I realized at some point that this wasn't just a trip or a visit, that this was a transformation, a transformatory experience. And that is what raised it to the level of a pilgrimage. And I have to say, if I want to put, people say, well, what kind of lessons did you learn? What was the theme? So, well, the theme that I picked up actually from the National Museum of African American Art and History, but Art and Culture, it really transformed to all these other places. And I think it became a theme for all of the museums. Oh, I have to mention too, I went to the Met that had the Harlem Renaissance exhibit, and I saw people there like, of course, W.B. Du Bois and Anton de Combe. That I've never seen a picture of him. I'm reading his book now, We Slaves of Suriname, and to see that was transformative as well. But the theme, the lesson that I learned and that I felt and that I still feel and that I carry with me is making a way out of no way. And that was one of the exhibits at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Making a way out of no way. That this is what Black people have always done. And this is what we're continuing to do. And this is what I feel that I can do. So this is an amazing transformative experience, and I know that this pilgrimage is not over. Well, what is over for right now is not this podcast, but we are going to take a short break. I like to take a breather break, about halfway through, just to, calm myself, to get in touch with myself, to process some information, and to breathe. So I hope that you'll take this time to do that too. I'll see you back in about 30 seconds, and you all know that I love this song. I will see you right after. Thanks for sticking with me.
Turn me up in the headphones. Yeah. Trying to get a lot of dough and dirt through all the obstacles, cause anything is possible. Yeah. Oh man, I got a lot of goals. Stack that bread and vomit nose. Anything is possible. Yeah. Trying to get a lot of dough and dirt through all the obstacles, cause anything is possible. Hey. Oh man, I got a lot of goals.
Aquaba back, everyone. So glad that you're still here with me, and I'm so glad that I'm still here with you. Now, continuing on about the pilgrimage, let me just correct something. I may have made a mistake on one of the names of the museums because I saw so many, but I think you know what I mean. So I'm not even going to go back and edit it because I think it's important for this to be unedited and for this to be raw material. So hope you'll forgive me for any little mistake I made there. Wasn't intentional, but I think you guys know what I mean. And plus, all this information on museums is on my website. Okay? Now, let's go on, because there were a few memorable experiences at the museum, some things that went beyond just the museums themselves. And a lot of that was related to food. I'm a foodie. I don't know if you guys know that. I probably have mentioned it several times, but I am. And I experienced that the museums made a really great effort in their cafeterias to incorporate and to serve food that was relevant to the exhibitions. And so the National Museum of National African American Museum in DC, that was serving amazing soul food, healthy soul food too. Some were vegan options, and but of course they had the fried fish and the fried chicken. But they also had the collard greens, vegan, and other just great foods too. And that really brought things home. Being able to have sweet potato pie at a museum, that to me is that is transformative right there. And also some of the other museums at the Met, they also were serving foods that were relevant to the Harlem Renaissance exhibit and some of the other exhibits they had there too. That to me really makes it a different experience. Shows that they really care. They're not just plastering pictures up, but they're also wanting people to have a more holistic experience, and that's important. A second thing they did, I love books too. The bookstores at these places were amazing. And I really encourage, I bought quite a few books there. I actually joined, I'm a member of many of these places, so I got a discount. And if you could, go there, see their book collection. If you're able to afford it, go ahead and buy a book to show support for the museums, but they also enhance the experience and let you take the experience home with you. You know how I feel about books, so if you offer me a book, I'm going to take it. Okay. Now there were some experiences too that were not so positive. And I'm going to just bring up a couple of them and see what you think of them. I'd like to know your thoughts. One was at the Met, and at the Harlem Renaissance exhibit, and it was a big exhibit, so it was in about 10 rooms. But then I noticed at some point there was somebody talking on the phone. And okay, hear people talking on the phone, no big deal. But then this woman, this was a white woman, maybe about 35, 40 years old, and she was talking on the phone for probably about 10 minutes and talking pretty loud too. And it was really disturbing to me. And I noticed, looking around, other people were kind of disturbed by her too, because she was walking around talking on the phone. She was actually on a video call. She was looking at her phone on the video call, walking around, talking very loudly for at least 10 minutes. And finally, a man came over to her, a black man, and he just yelled, "Will you shut up?" Okay. Yeah, and that kind of startled her. Other people looked, and, she stayed on the phone, but you couldn't hear her talking anymore. She really put her voice down very low. And she stayed on the phone for a little while. I couldn't hear her anymore. I was kind of watching and seeing what's going to happen. And anyway, then I saw her go over to him after she got off the phone and say, "My child has special needs, so what you did was unkind." And then she left the exhibit, which, well, it's hard to unpack. There's a lot to unpack on that one. But I understand his frustration. He was so angry, and I was too. That was kind of building up for me too, that she was not only being disruptive, she was being disrespectful, because other people in there were all just looking around at different pictures and having an experience, and she was interrupting that for quite a long time. Now, I guess he could have approached it a little bit differently, maybe a little more gently. I'm not sure she would have responded to that. What did happen was that security came over, and they were talking to him, and I stayed and talked with them too, and said she was on the phone for a long time, and she was very disturbing to me and a lot of other people around. And they said, "Well, you should have let us handle it." Well, they didn't handle it, and they had plenty of opportunity to handle it. But they didn't handle it with her. Instead, they decided to go to, of course, they're not handling with her because she's a white woman. They decided to handle it and focus on the black man, which is why I decided it was important to stay. So, anyway, so that happened, and I'd like to know your thoughts on that. What you think, about that situation. I will say that I did find in a lot of these exhibits, well, in the African American History Museum, people were just extremely, they don't have to be reverent, but they were respectful and learning, and people of all races, and that was just wonderful to see. In the African Art Museum, people, particularly white people, were a little less respectful. Not in that they were, putting anything down. They were just being disruptive, kind of joking, laughing, maybe sitting on the exhibits. That's just not good behavior. Okay, another not so positive experience was, let me see, which one will I bring up? Okay, this was at the New York Library, and that did have an exhibit going about, as I said earlier, about, Arctic exploration. Now, I also said, too, that the Arctic exploration about Matthew Henson. So I decided to go in and look at the exhibit and see if I could see a picture of Matthew Henson. Anyway, I get there, and they're talking about, the Norwegians who have gone to the North Pole and South Pole, and the British, and, Perry, Captain Perry, who Matthew Henson actually went with, and, others, who have been to the North Pole. What they didn't do was mention Matthew Henson. Not a word, not a picture, nothing. And that was amazing to me, since he was actually the first person to reach the North Pole. Yes, he and Perry went together, but Perry couldn't go on that last day, and so he didn't actually go and sit on the summit like Matthew Henson did. That was very disappointing to see that wasn't there. Okay, so not everything was totally positive, but most things were. Most things were. And it didn't interrupt the pilgrimage. It just, those things contributed to it, added to it. Because everything on a pilgrimage isn't about, roses and rainbows. Its transformation sometimes requires seeing things that are difficult and experiencing things that are difficult. So, by the way, you also know about part of my pilgrimage has been to go to the Equal Justice Initiative Legacy Museum in Montgomery. Now, that was a total experience on a different level too, and I think it actually prepared me for the next step that I just took last week. It is still something I carry with me, something I will always carry with me. I am not the same person after having gone to the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. Not the same person. And Some of it was so difficult. Much of it was. And others also then reflected the making a way out of no way theme. And I liked how the EJI at the end had a reflection room where you could sit there and just, process, think, absorb, breathe, do whatever you needed to do, because there was so much there that was difficult and so much there that was uplifting. So really there's a lot going on. But all of that is part of the pilgrimage. Now, why am I telling you about my pilgrimage? Yes, the museums were amazing. And, it's a continuing thing for me. But what I want to really do is to find out about you, your pilgrimage. Are you on a pilgrimage? Do you want to take a pilgrimage? Do you feel the need for a pilgrimage? What does pilgrimage mean to you? I think it's part of something. Some religions kind of require it, but as I said, it doesn't have to be in a religious setting. I think part of this lifetime we spend here, maybe this lifetime is a pilgrimage, probably it is, but we also can choose our pilgrimage too, choose when and how and where and why we need to transform, to take it to a different level, to expand beyond the limits of our skin and the current limits of our consciousness. Pilgrimage is real growth. And as I said, it's not easy, not always. And sometimes you don't even know that you're on it until you look back and say, oh my gosh, I am not the same person that I was when I started this, what I thought was a trip. This was actually a pilgrimage, a transformation experience. I wish that for you. I wish that for everyone. So, you can do it through museums. You can do it in any way you want to. Mine happened to go through museums. That wasn't my chosen path. I probably wouldn't have chosen that path. But somehow I was led on that. And I hope that you'll be open to being led to where and when and why and how your pilgrimage will happen. And to be open to it continuing, and to be open to the positive, easy, happy, uplifting stuff, and the difficult, maybe even dangerous, negative things too, because it's a package deal, and it's all there, not happening to you, but happening for you. On that note, I'm going to say Asante Sana. Thank you for being here with me, for listening to me, and I just want to say, if you want to continue this conversation, now you can find me on Instagram at Ama Robin L. That's Ama _Robin _ the letter L. And I also have a newsletter too called the No Mo Beat. And you can go to my Espresso Talk Today website and sign up for the newsletter. It comes every week, and it's about a lot of stuff like this. I say there's a lot of growth moments, but a lot of empowering and liberating moments. So I think you can see how this is Black liberation at its finest and its purest. This is, I'm empowered to do this, to go forward, making a way out of no way, and I feel so liberated and free because I've done this, because I am doing this. Again, Asante Sana, and remember that, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this part of the pilgrimage with me. And remember, now more than ever, strength, soul, and reparations. Bye for now. Ashe, community.